Welcome to the Fly Culture Podcast, bringing you interviews, reviews and fishing tips. Here's your host, Pete Tigers.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Fly Culture Podcast. My name's Pete Tigers. This is another one of our On the Water series, and today I'm out with my good friend Gerald Spiers, who runs the Devon School of Fly Fishing, and we've headed down to the Devon Cornwall border, down a busy A30. And the reason we're here today is that I think it's about the 26th of June that I'm recording this, and so Grayling were in season, and I was really keen to see if I could get my Grayling account underway. And I thought the Tamar would be a good place to go visit it. So I'm fishing, as I said, with Gerald today, and we're fishing a beat that he has access to and takes people fishing on. So I'm really lucky I'm in good hands. And already, while we've been standing here just getting our rods ready, that he was telling me about some nice grayling that his guest caught last week as well. So I'm really excited to go in and try that in a few seconds. But Gerald, it's great to have you back on the podcast. It's great to be on the river. It's afternoon. It's a little bit later. It's coming up 3 o'clock. It's a Saturday. It's overcast. It feels pretty good. It's about 20 degrees. Feels pretty good. But most importantly, are you pretty good?
Yeah, I'm super good, Pete. Really good. Been very busy. I've been working 7 days a week, but it's not a chore. You know, guiding full time for me is fairly new to me. So I got plenty of energy for it and pretty excited for the clients to come. I'm really excited that you're down here with me, and I've actually got a chance to cast a rod, and I'm not showing people how to catch fish. So yeah, this is going to be really fun, and this is my home river, and you know, same as the Tor being your home river, you've got these sort of really deep feelings about it, and you know it very well. And this beat is fairly new to us, so I'm learning every time I come down. And on this low water, you can start to see these pockets of water and little sort of seams everywhere, and it's just really exciting to be new. We've had a few big fish out, well, big for down here. You know, this is no River Loon or Eden. When we say big, you know, anything over a pound's a nice fish here. We have seen some big fish here. We lost one in this little pot just up here, so hopefully maybe we'll get one of these big guys out.
We'll give it a good go. To give everyone an idea of the river, where would you term this, where we actually are in the Tamar system versus, would it be lower, middle, getting towards the upper? How do you term that?
I think you'd probably still class this as lower river, but sort of top end of the lower river. So we've got all the major tributaries coming into it, apart from one called the Inny, which is one that comes off Bodmin Moor, which you've fished with me several times down there. It's a lovely clear little stream. So, you know, it's a good size river here, and there's salmon here at the moment, there's sea trout, there's grayling, there's trout, so, and there's a few dace in here, so a real myriad of fish, and that's what's incredibly exciting. You know, if you're fishing some of these pots with big nymphs, you never know what you're going to pull out.
Absolutely. And we've seen, while we were getting out the cars and we had something to eat, it was all one of those sort of civilized sessions that we said, oh, should we have something to eat? So we've sat on the tailgates of the cars and chatted about fishing, life, just about everything else that goes with it as well, and had something to eat, had something to drink. We've walked downstream a little bit. The river, to give you an idea, we're standing sort of on true right bank as we look downstream. To me, we're standing now in a pool that's probably 30 feet across. It's got two main runs in it, a little bit of pace to it. It looks a beautiful spot, and I can see how the guys, why Grayling would like that, and why the guys probably caught some nice fish there, or hooked some nice fish there as well. So I'm really excited to give the flies a little bit of a go. But how you set up, Gerald, to start us off?
Today I've just set up a rod with a dry fly. I thought I'd watch you fish some of these nice little pots. I'm not sort of absolutely rushing today I'm really just savouring the day of chilling out and not having the pressure of trying to get someone into a fish. So yeah, I think I'll just look for a few rising fish, watch you for a bit, but I have brought a rod down with sort of some 10-pound line on it, put a couple of flies and a few of the likely sort of salmon and sea trout areas. I might just rip those across and see if we can get whacked by anything.
Cool. And that, your trout rod, looking at it, is that a Mackenzie, what's that, 9 footer, 10 footer?
It's a Mackenzie FX1 9-foot 4-weight. It's a really nice rod. I've really enjoyed using it, and same as you, Pete. That I've got loads of rods in the cupboard, and sometimes it's nice to rediscover things and discover new stuff. So yeah, I'm really enjoying fishing with that.
And I've sort of set up, not knowing the water and not having fished here. I brought 2 rods down, and the reason for that is that I've got a nymph rod with me today, and like I've said on the podcast before, I don't tend to nymph a great deal, and certainly I don't really through the trout season. But the reason I've got my rod today, my nymph rod, is that it's a Solderini nymph rod that I've not christened yet. So that's one of the reasons, and I didn't really do much fishing over the winter, so I wanted to take it out and see if I could christen that today, and it felt apt that I would try and catch a grayling on it as well. And then my dry fly rod, I've got a Gatti. It's a 9-foot. It says for a 2 or a 3 weight, and I've got a 3 weight line on there, and I've just got a pearl butt emerger on there, and I'm still kind of like Gerald, really. I like to see a fish rise, and we'd seen some, but I thought it might be fun just to try and christen the rod. So looking up, as I said, the pool is probably about 30 feet across, but the main section of it probably is 20 or so, and there's 2 flows, one relatively close to us. It's running over water, probably, what is it, Gerald, 2-3 feet deep?
Yeah, 2 feet deep for the main part, and then there's this little pot here which is about 4.5 foot for 10 foot. So there's a small window, so it's one of those ones, if you do put your nymphs through it, whatever's there is going to see it. So I think you'll have action pretty quickly, or not at all.
Well, I'll give it a go and keep you in touch with what's happening. And as I said, it would be just nice to christen the rod. It's a slightly shorter one, actually. I know 10 foot tends to be the most popular length for rods, but this is a 9.5 footer, and for me, it doesn't make a whole amount of difference. And I'm just excited to give it a try. So we'll see how we get on. Well, the really lucky thing about coming to these sorts of places is coming with someone who knows the water intimately. And probably I made half a dozen casts, and the line went, and just back from where Gerald was describing that sort of slightly deeper pot. And I know I've found sometimes grayling will sit at the back and the run out of a deeper pot there. And I had a grayling there. What would you give me for that one, mate?
Yeah, about a pound, I should think. It's 3/4 to a pound. Really nice little fish.
Absolute beauty. I'm absolutely thrilled to have christened the rod as well. So I'm really pleased with it. And what I love about nymph rods as well is their ability, and we've spoken, so many of us on these podcasts, about the ability to play fish as well as casting as well. Just watching, actually, you see that last mayfly spinner there laying some eggs at the moment. But their ability to play fish, and it's relatively strong water there, but managed to get the fish out of that faster water and into Gerald's net. I keep trying to thrust the rod into his hand, but he's, I think, waiting for that moment of the rising fish, and I think just enjoying being on the river and not guiding, I guess.
Yeah, it's lovely to be out with you, Pete, and it's nice, relaxed, and I'm just enjoying watching you fish your new rod through there, and I'm hoping when you get up into that pot deeper, we can find that big one in there. So, the one that you sort of glimpsed and it's gone, it sort of stays there. And, if I never see it again, it'll always be a bit of a myth, and that's lovely. But you always sort of associate those things when it's sort of burned into your memory.
It's funny how you remember the fish that you didn't land. I guess they sort of build in your mind, and your recollections and everything perhaps over time change a little bit, or you remember that one that you didn't get. And it's funny how they sort of stick with you for a really long time, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's completely essential that happens. And once you've caught enough, I think you enjoy those moments. You're like, oh, as long as you've seen, like when you've seen a fish ghost in the water and you're like, wow, and it's gone, it always leaves you keen. Hopefully we'll be graced with a few more years yet. But those are the sort of things that really sort of get the juices going for me.
That sounds pretty cool to me. So we're probably a third, if that, up the pool, and standing in the water now, I can kind of see, what I tried my best to do is those two flows that I described earlier, they're probably about 8-9 feet apart, and there's some nice flat water in between the two of them. And if I was a grayling, trout, sea trout, or possibly even a salmon, I'd be sitting there not having to use a lot of energy, yet can dart into that bubble line if I need to. So I'm going to try and throw some more. There's probably another 30-40 feet of this pool, and then the pool above that looks stunning as well. It's a really lovely bit of water, isn't it?
Oh, it's cracking. It's absolutely cracking. There's such a mixture of gravel pool here, and you've got these sort of bedrock areas. And just when we go around the corner, there's a big sort of area of bedrock about 18 inches deep. But right in the centre, there's like a rock pool. And there's always fish rising in the rock pool. So I've called it rock pool. It's probably not what it's called, but yeah, it's exciting searching out. I'm still got loads to learn here. Haven't salmon fished it. I've seen salmon here, and I've been scoping it out for salmon fishing. But this is the first time that I'm properly going to have a fish. I've had the odd cast after clients are gone, but yeah, I've had to scoot off. So this is lovely being down here.
Cool, right. Well, I'm going to pick my rod back up again, and it's nice seeing damsels on the water, as I said, one odd mayfly spinner laying eggs, and there was some stoneflies around. There's not a huge amount, but even as I was holding the microphone for Gerald, I was looking downstream, and there's a back eddy the other side, and I saw a fish rise in there as well. So that's all encouraging. So we'll wait and see how we get on. But I'm going to pick up my rod and see if I can find another fish or two if I'm really lucky. So I've worked my way up the pool, and we're getting relatively close to the hot spot that Gerald mentioned where they'd hooked a nice fish. I'm sort of fishing just a couple of nymphs, and one of about, I think it's about 3 mil, the other one 2.5, and just sort of gently flipping those upstream. Like I say, I fished a 10-foot nymph rod for many, many years. This one's a little bit shorter. The interesting thing about it as well is that Gerald and I actually a little while back put a fly line through it, and it worked really, really well. So I was really pleased with how it performed there. But like I say, it's just been nice to get to... I don't feel disadvantaged having that slightly shorter rod, and for me, it just feels nice and comfortable to handle as well. For this size of stream, certainly, and feels really, really nice. But I'm just sort of flipping my nymphs down. I like really giving them a good slow lift at the end and a little bit of a jiggle. I know a lot of people talk about setting at the end, but I like the slow lift and the chance that a grayling may take it there and just sort of jiggle the flies through the water, see if I can induce somebody to come eat the fly. So just in that spot, I just turned the microphone off, and just in that spot, I thought I'd got, and I know Gerald even, and as a former guide, I know that moment when you think a fish is taken, you sort of say, yep, or strike, or whatever it was. But I think we were just rattling some rocks and bits and pieces like that, and I threw over on the seam exactly of the far flow there of where Gerald said, and lo and behold, another grayling. So incredibly lucky. Slightly bigger, was it?
Yeah, I would say sort of quarter of a pound bigger. Nice fish, really nice. I thought it was a little bit bigger when it first turned, but yeah, nice fish to catch in heavy water like that.
This has been amazing. We've walked probably 15 feet, something like that. And, for the West Country grayling, we don't have huge, great populations of fish. So it's been really pleasing to be able to see a couple of grayling already and get a shot at them and get them in the net as well. So my day's completed. I'm absolutely over the moon. I just really wanted to catch a grayling, and I've been lucky to catch 2 out of 1 pool, and I've still got a little bit more water to fish. Gerald still won't take the rod. He wants to wait for that rising fish. So I'm going to continue just through this pool, make a few more casts and see if there's anyone else home. So the Tamar's the river that just keeps giving. We'd gone up into there's a small pot, probably 35 feet long, possibly a tiny little bit longer, runs against the far bank. It's not very wide here at all, and there's a very distinct flow, and it's a little bit of a channel there, and Gerald said to me, it's one of those easy ones that's easier to walk past. We decided to stick with the nymphs. We've seen upstream of us, there's 2 or 3 fish rising upstream of us, which is really, really exciting. I don't know how Gerald's staying so calm. I wouldn't have been polite. I'd have said, enjoy yourself, son, and I'd have been off up there with my dry fly rod. But this pool I flipped through, had a sea trout as well. So small school peel of about £1, would you say, Gerald? Yeah. So about £1 or so, fresh, lively, absolutely fantastic. And we're just watching fish rise above us at the moment. They're having a ball at the moment. There's not a steady hatch of stuff. There's stuff trickling off. We've seen spinners. We saw yellow May spinners. We've seen all sorts of stuff. But there are fish picking stuff up. So it's been thrilling for me already, and we've only been fishing a short time. And like I say, I've fished no distance, and the river's just come up trumps already. So I'm absolutely thrilled. While I'm holding the microphone at the moment, there's that lovely smell of thyme I can smell on my fingers from holding the grayling, and all those little things that come drifting back to you about the smell of grayling. And we took a couple of quick pictures while the fish was just in the water, and you remember what slippery little suckers those things are as well. So that was great. But Gerald, it's just doing great guns. I know you're paying no attention to what I'm saying because you're sitting watching these fish rise, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm sort of. There's 3 or 4 there, constant risers. It's hard to see what size they are. It's very, very still. It's very calm water up there. So I think we're going to have to sort of wade a little bit and get a bit closer.
So I'm going to stand on the bank, and Gerald's going to grab his rod and have a go up there. I'm going to stand on the bank and hopefully commentate a little bit as he throws a cast in and explain. The river, where this pool, the river sort of thins here. So we've got on our side, as I said earlier, the true right bank. There's a lovely gravel bar, and then it widens right out. And I guess it's probably shallower, flatter water. While I'm standing here now, I'm seeing 3 fish quite happily rising away under a tree towards the far bank. We saw one at the tail of the pool that we're about to come into as well. So hopefully I'll be able to talk you through what's happening. So we walked up and we're on the edge of the shelf here. We've seen a fish rise in the middle, almost opposite us actually. And like I say, to the far banks, a fair distance. And Gerald sort of made his first cast out just to gauge distance. And he looks as though he's putting straight. Oh, fish came up and took that straight away. It looked like it turned on it, didn't it?
A bit too quick on that,
but that's encouraging. So we were talking about, while Gerald was getting set up, we were talking about fish, and the hatch that was going on, and there's sort of bits and pieces hatching off. And I actually saw a mayfly dun come down as well, and small fish try and eat that as well. So it'll be really, really interesting. But it looks as though he's got a sort of an olive pattern on there, and that worked pretty much straight away. Casting across the river, big upstream mend as it goes down, gives him that big long drift down this flat pool. So like I say, it's pretty flat water, and it's one of those ones I think you have to be really stealthy when you get in to cover the fish. But we've just seen one. I'm sorry for pausing a little bit there, but I just saw one rise, and he calls it, as Gerald mentioned earlier, actually the rock pool. And just on the outside edge of it, a fish just moved there. So we're just having a look there at the moment, but absolutely fascinating pool to fish. I hate the term technical fishing, but it looks to me as though this is more a case of it here at the moment. And getting into position, that fish I mentioned, I don't know, did that just rise again then? Yeah, it did just rise again. So yeah, it's been great to see fish moving. I think I can see actually under the tree now a lot of caddis on the water now. So sedges, so nice and easy to spot. They're sort of moving just above the water surface. That fish again has just risen again as well. So interesting. So we got, like I say, a real mixture of stuff hatching just at the moment. So Gerald's got into position with this fish that we've seen rise. He's just cast out to it. Behind him, I said the term technical fishing. It's a tricky cast because the tree branch is almost directly behind him. So he's having to sort of spay cast it into position. It's actually a variant of a snake roll that he's making at the moment, but that's giving him the ability, and it's just drifting over the spot now. Oh, and I thought you were going to get done then. So again, drifting back down that line at the moment. It looks absolutely spot on. And just into the spot, just about now. And it's almost a downstream, well, it is a downstream drift he's giving the fish at the moment as well. And if you listen to the podcast, you know I was talking about the benefits of drifting a fly downstream and how it can catch you some fish where you might just walk past a spot because it may be a little bit tricky to cast to. But that looked like the perfect drift, and this is always one of those interesting ones where you've got sort of a mixture of stuff on the water, and having a fish sort of turn on the fly early, you think with almost sort of second or third cast, I guess it was, you think to yourself, right, I've probably got the right pattern, make a perfect drift over a fish you've seen rise, and then nothing happens. So sometimes it does get you sort of scratching your head and thinking about those changes or whether there's a need for a change or not. But looks to me as though he's covering it absolutely fantastically at the moment.
Did you see that?
It was really subtle. That was sorry if you got the beginning of that. Really subtle take from a fish then, and it was tiny. You know, it was the one he was after, and lo and behold, it's happened. Just going to step quietly as I can into position while he lands the fish. Beautiful fish, brown trout, beautiful buttery colour, into the net. It goes. Well done, mate. Nicely done. Very, very well done. And that's a really pretty fish, isn't it? Are you pleased with that, bud? That was well, and you know, I think we shouldn't underestimate. As I said, I'm standing under the tree. There was absolutely zero room to cast, and you managed to get that fly over it. So that's one of those nicely earned ones, and really well done, bud. Well done.
Oh, thanks, Pete. Yeah, I think, you know, when it comes to fishing rivers like this, when the evening comes tonight, you'll probably see a lot more fish, and the fish that are around now are sort of as few and far between that are really sipping properly. But it was easy. You could have mistaken that for an absolutely tiny fish. So when I struck, it was more I saw the fly disappear. It was really, I didn't see that fish properly take, and yeah, it was. So yeah, it's nice. It took a few casts to get it and a bit of slack into that seam, but yeah, it's nice to get those.
Really well done. Yeah, that was great skill and an absolute pleasure to watch. So Gerald made a cast into Rock Pool Pool, as he calls it, and has just been rewarded with a nice trout. Yeah, nice trout. So really, really pretty fish. They're really beautifully marked here, actually, mate, aren't they?
Oh, so spotty. Absolutely. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? Yeah, really nice. I think down at this section of the Tamar, you know, I've fished nearly all of the Tamar over the years, and there's a really sweet spot here for sort of a couple of miles. And I was saying earlier that mixture of gravel and bedrock and these pools, there's a lot of overhanging trees here and dead wood. And I think this just might be a real sweet spot, and, you know, slightly larger stamp of fish than higher up the river. So yeah, it's wonderful to be able to have access to this. You know, in my wildest dreams, I didn't think I'd ever be able to get down here, but through the kindness of someone, yeah, we've managed to. Oh, there's a nice fish up there, just above that dead tree. So yeah, it's just great to be down here.
What it's nice, and as a former guide myself, is seeing somebody on their day off enjoying every second of it and being able to pick the rod up for themselves. And I know, like many other guides, the Gerald has a passion for teaching, sharing knowledge and expertise, and it is just nice that when you can actually pick up the rod and do what you want to do, you don't have to go through explaining, just instinctively make the cast. And that cast we were chatting away actually off mic, and you know, I said, oh, did you see something? Because he suddenly fired a shot out, and he said, yeah, I saw it out the corner of my eye. And lo and behold, fired a shot out there, and the fish took it straight away. So I guess you're probably enjoying your day off, aren't you?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's absolutely sort of, you know, those moments that you sort of wish you could press slow motion on and just slow everything down. But I think that's the beauty of fishing, it's the beauty of seasons, isn't it? You know, when we start early doors and, you know, we're all hopeful for a hatch and it doesn't happen, but when it does, it's amazing. And, you know, you're really busy and then you can't fish yourself, but you know, in the future, you know, as you get older, that, you know, you relax and things come. And, you know, we've managed to hook up on this day that I should have been working on, and managed to sort of put another day to it, and we're down here enjoying some really good class fishing.
That's exactly right. You know, and again, we've not, you know, the fascinating thing is that we barely moved. You know, we've done one and a minuscule bit of what looks a very long pool, and the fishing, we've just hit it just right with rising fish. You know, I've managed to nymph some fish, and it's been nice having the option of a couple of methods just to try. You know, my gut probably would have been similar to Gerald's, that, you know, I'd sit here waiting for those rising fish and everything else. But you know what? I've kind of enjoyed throwing the nymphs for a little bit as well. That having been said, we've just seen pretty close to the spot where Gerald had his fish. I think you were a tiny bit closer to the bank, weren't you? Yeah. But that looked a nice fish, didn't it? That just rose.
Yeah, it did. And when you're looking over there, you'd easily sort of think it's not worth casting because it's just bedrock. But there's this sort of, it's where the rock pool comes from. There's a little rock pool in there, and trout seem to really like it. I think that you can see this line, sort of bubble line here, of everything that's coming down the river, and some of it's just tucking in there, and I think it stops in exactly that rock pool. So they're sort of in there with a bit of sort of safety of that rock pool and just sipping away.
I guess it slows that water a little bit more for them as well, doesn't it? By the looks of it, just looking at it, the pace may be a tiny bit shorter. It's a pretty long cast across. To give people an eye, what would you say, 40 feet, something like that?
Yeah, I should think so, about 40 feet. And this is where, you know, Pete was mentioning about technical casting, that you haven't really got much of a back cast here, and you've got the main flow, so the drifts don't last very long, and it's hard to get the right amount of slack line. And, you know, some days you're on your game and you get most casts, but it's tricky casting here, but it's great. You know, this beat, you can see trout fish, salmon fish, catch some grayling on nymphs, catch some trout on the dries. It's sort of got everything here, you know. And if you've got someone that's not that great at casting, or they're beginning out, there's lots of riffly sections to hook them up into some fish. But if you've got someone who's keen and a decent caster, this is sort of heaven, really.
Yeah, absolutely looks like it. My suggestion is you go for that. The hatch now, I know you've been catching fish on olives. You notice all these caddis and sedge starting to appear now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really sort of skating across the water beneath this sycamore tree. They're sort of circling around like they do. And I've spotted, I think you spotted it earlier, where that ash is. There's a sort of sizable fish just rocking the water up there. And I'll be, you know, I think I might hand you the dry fly rod for that one, Pete. It'd be nice to see if you can get it.
All right, well, we'll see. You go for that one on the far bank there anyway, and then we'll go from there. So we slowly edged our way up to the ash tree that Gerald was mentioning. There's like above, as the bank comes down, there's sort of some debris, some branches and stuff sort of holding the flow a little bit. And Gerald's made a cast. We've seen that fish rise once more. We've seen a smaller one rise behind it, and it's still, this is probably a longer cast again, 45 feet, I would say, something like that. It's to get where you need it to be. There's a branch hanging down, and there's probably a gap of 4 feet, probably no more than that would allow you to get the perfect shot. Gerald's sort of kind of opposite that at the moment, and he's casting towards there. This could be the shot, actually. That's pretty close. And one of the issues he said is getting the drift. You know, it looks as though, because you're casting almost across pretty flat water, it looks flat water, but of course the pace of it is a great deal different than it actually looks. So drag, again, is that big enemy that he's trying to overcome. Make a long, difficult cast and then get it into the zone. But it's a real nasty one to try and get to at the moment, but exciting nonetheless. He's not gone again. It feels as though, I don't know, if things, the air felt really close earlier, and the fish, of course we've walked up the river, and that's probably had something to do with it, and caught some of the fish as well, so that's had something to do with it. But you can feel a little bit more of a breeze here. The river is, as I look upstream, just making a very slight bend to the left as well, but we've got the always got one. he's got one. Yeah, it's got a little grayling that's come up. Just while I was looking, I missed that magic happen. So a little grayling on a dry fly as well, which is absolutely beautiful. So nicely done, mate, because that's a really nasty cast, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, he was just saying he doesn't think, if you didn't hear that, he doesn't think he's had one proper drift through to where the big guy has been rising. There's a mayfly spinner in front of me at the moment, which is kind of cool to see. So they've been trickling off throughout the day, I guess. So yeah, it's just looking great at the moment. But I was just saying, it felt as though the conditions were slightly different. He's sort of put a cast. I don't know if did you see something? Yeah, he's seen something rise, so he's cast downstream a little bit, and he's just managing that slack to get his fly to go down. He's got the same fly on, that seems to be working just fine, despite us talking about a lot of caddis being on the water, so that may be why they're perhaps not rising as regularly. They're picking off those odd olives as they're actually hatching. So we've just seen that fish rise again. Yes, he's got him. He's got him. That's a nice fish, yeah? Does it feel good fish? No, not as good as you thought. That was nicely done. I've tried to describe the shot he's had to make as best as I possibly am. It's pulling. Nice bend in the rod. We haven't seen it clearly. I haven't seen it. Oh, it's a nice fish. Nice fish. Nicely done, mate. That was really well deserved. Yeah, again, they're so spotty, the fish here. Really, really pretty. But that's an absolute beauty. Absolute beauty. Well done, mate. He's going upstream as well, so really nice, pretty fish. He's got the beans on him now, hooked perfectly, and he's in the net. That's an angry brown trout you got there, bud.
Yeah, he's not happy about that, and these fish haven't been fished for a long time down here, so maybe he's was surprised he was hooked to begin with, because it felt like a very small fish. But yeah, it's a nice fish, very pretty fish.
And for our listeners, what are you going to give yourself for weight for that one?
Oh, Snow Pete, probably a pound, isn't it?
Yeah, yep.
Getting that way.
Absolutely, really pretty fish, beautifully marked. Yeah, beautiful West Country trout, absolutely stunning. It's funny, I don't know if you're the same, that we've only fished 4 pools really, and the last 2 I fished, I caught some fish, caught a nice brown trout that really, it took me downstream and actually ripped some line off the reel, and it felt as though it was something much bigger than it actually was. But it's funny, sometimes you fish, I don't know if you're the same, but sometimes I fish and think, oh, I did okay, I caught some fish, but I didn't fish a pool as well as I thought I possibly could have done. And I think this was a wonderful example. There's a run-in on this pool. Again, the river's not super wide here. It's probably 35, 40 feet across. And there's a run down, goes towards the far bank. And I was working the seam of that. And as I said, I had a fish there. I had one rattle me. And that was great. But I felt I didn't really fish it as well as I possibly could. Part of me thinks, oh, perhaps I should go through again, but I've had a really nice time, and I'm sort of standing now at the head of the pool and looking at the tail, and Gerald's gone into the tail, sticking with the dry still, and has been picking up some fish at the tail here that have just been happily rising. So it's really interesting I try and think when I'm fishing about my approach and what I'm doing, and if it's not going, sometimes to plan, and it's not like I'm getting tangled up or anything like that, it's just I felt I could have fished that pool a little bit better. So like I say, I may go back down again. I've just had a really good time. I've caught some the object for me today was to try and catch a grayling, and I caught a grayling, and I'm absolutely over the moon. But I caught 2 graylings, so I'm absolutely over the moon, and then a bonus sea trout and 2 or 3 trout as well. So I can't ask for any more than that. So I'm absolutely thrilled about it. It's been lovely to see new water. It's been really nice to see somebody who's so deeply immersed in fishing to get out and get a rod in their hand, and I'm seeing him wading out now to the middle of the river. He's obviously seen a fish rise out there, and he's sort of waist deep in the river. It's wider, that pool, the tail of the pool's wider there, and he's put a cast right in against the far bank. There's sort of a root of a branch that's been cut off somewhere or other by the looks of it. It's stuck sort of in the pool there, and I don't know if that's just holding the flow back a little bit, but it's been wonderful to fish somewhere that I've not seen before. I've only heard about, because obviously Gerald's told me about that, and it's lived up to expectation and a little bit more. So I'm really, really happy. Like I said, reflective. I think I could have fished the last pool certainly a little bit better, but that doesn't detract from the fun that I've had, and it's been wonderful. So really, really enjoying that. I'm going to step up a little bit now and see. Gerald's sort of trying to get a drift across to the far bank still. There's a smaller fish rose downstream of where he was, but it looks to me as the intensity is interesting when you watch people fish, and you can see, I guess is what I was talking about, that zone that you get into, and it's almost a hunter instinct. It's probably something deep and primeval that lurks deeply below us, and you can see that's that zone that he's in. The shoulders are very, very slightly hunched. It's almost in a hunter pose now as he's making those long casts along the river, across the river, to reach that far bank. So it was a pleasure watching you there, bud. There's a few rising fish and picking them off. It looked like some fun.
Yeah, it was good crack. It was some smaller fish that I managed to get, and there was a bigger one, and it's where we saw a fish a couple of days ago. But I got it to go, but more luck than judgment with it, because it's a difficult cast, and just as it started to skate, the trout took. So it was on for a second and off. So yeah, nice.
Moral victory, if nothing else. And it was interesting. I was just talking on here while you were fishing. You know, I was, whatever it was, 30, 40 feet downstream, and you could see you were in that zone with that cast and everything else that went with it. And it's funny how we drift in and out of those moments, aren't we? And we're really focused. And I always find when I start fishing, I'm super focused, go through a spell where it may drop a little bit and then it comes back again strong. It's fascinating how do you detect those sort of moments as well when you're fishing?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you enjoy your fishing when you're recognising it, and, you know, instead of getting frustrated, or it's just like, sit down, have a drink, watch what's going on. And those moments can be pivotal, and you start seeing fish in other places where blundering through because your mind's not quite with it, you haven't got that sort of hunter thing dialed in at that moment, and you just sit down and chill, and normally it comes back.
Absolutely. But it's been, you know, I was saying we fished 3/4 pools, and I've been amazed by the variety of the fishing, the quality of the fishing and the quality of the fish. And again, while you were fishing, I was talking through that trout that ripped some line off my reel, and we thought it was something a little bit bigger for a few seconds. And, you know, it's just a nice mixture of fishing. You must enjoy coming here. Yeah,
it's pretty exciting, and I haven't fished it very many times. Like I said earlier, you know, I've just a quick sort of cast here and there. So I've got a memory that's almost eidetic for rivers, so I learn stuff very quickly. Once I've walked through it, I can picture it. But that's okay. But you learn, the more you fish somewhere, you learn this sort of where salmon lie and sea trout. So I've got a lot to learn, and I'm really enjoying that process of that fresh water and the excitement it brings.
Well, Bud, thank you so much for having me along here today. I've really, as I said, we've only fished for a few hours and had a number of fish between us, which has been great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me along. If people want to come fish with you on this bit of water, how do they get hold of you?
If they just email me, if you look on the Devon School of Fly Fishing website, there's a contact button on there. Just pop us over an email. We're pretty busy. We do have a bit of space in September, and we've got a bit of room in October for some salmon fishing. Obviously, these are spate rivers, so the salmon fishing, if you book salmon fishing here, can't promise you'll have water, but there will be salmon here, so probably rolling around. But if you're keen, there's some great trout fishing and grayling fishing to go along with it.
Fantastic. Well, I very much and hope I can get back to fish here again sometime. And it's been great to do another On the Water podcast. I've really, really enjoyed this. I've really, really enjoyed the fishing. We've just seen another fish rise as well. So it may be we'd sort of said, well, I've cut my flies off now, but I've got a sense Gerald might hang around a little bit longer. But it's been great to take you onto the river with me again today. Thank you so much for listening. As ever with all of these, and Gerald will be a testament to this, there's no retakes. We don't do it a rerun. It's exactly as it happens, and it's been really fun to do these. So thank you so much for listening to the Fly Culture podcast. Please, if you do enjoy these, you'll consider subscribing to them and perhaps leaving us a review if you're enjoying those. I'd greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much for listening to the Fly Culture podcast. Thanks very much indeed.
The Fly Culture podcast is brought to you in association with Fly Culture, a quarterly print magazine. For more information, please visit flyculturemag.com. You can also find Fly Culture on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter.